8, it's Brad Carpenter and Michael Majors. And what a match here. You see green-white Angels of Carpenter on the left. Michael Majors' Teamer Emerge on the right. This is the only match of 11 3-in-1s. There will be one player here live for top 8. One thing, when you start wheels fall off at the end of the day, you do have great breakers. And Brad Carpenter gets his last shot because of that.
Right. The opponents that he's been losing to, well, they're in the top 8.
Oath of Nissa from Brad Carpenter finds Fortified Village. Major starts on a pair of Painlands, Shivan Reef and Yavimaya Coast. And first play of the game is Brad Carpenter and Sylvan Advocate. Michael will grapple with the past, flipping 3 lands into the graveyard.
And in the early turns, the most that Majors is doing is casting these value cards and potentially a Kozilek's Return. Conveniently, Sylvan Advocate has 3 toughness.
Right, Majors is one of the decks that actually can cast Kozilek's Return. You see Grapple will go into Nissa's Pilgrimage for Majors. Was hoping to maybe get Spell Mastery for that. He'll settle with just 2 forests.
Yeah, the extra forest is always great, though it's not especially necessary.
We go back over to Carpenter. He hits in for 2. Putting Majors down to 17, and now he has a Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. She'll go up to 4 and bring a plant token onto the battlefield.
And this is the scripted curve for this green-white deck. Oath of Nissa, Sylvan Advocate, Nissa. If he has a Gideon on turn 4, Majors is really in trouble.
No Gideon here for Carpenter. We go back over to Majors. This is his turn 4. He's accelerated once from a Pilgrimage. Main deck, Michael Majors. His mid-game plays are cards like Primal Druid, Ishkanah Graph Widow, Wretched Griff. No Delirium yet for the Ishkanah. He has instant sorcery and land. If you weren't watching him last game, he keeps track of this very nicely for you. You see he keeps 2 graveyards going. The graveyard closest to the deck it shows a count of his different card types. He puts extra copies below it. Another Nissa's Pilgrimage for Michael Majors. This one is Spell Mastered.
He has achieved the status of Spell Master.
10 forests in his deck, so no shortage of targets.
Yeah, for a teamer deck, it's very heavily base green. And while the Nissa's Pilgrimage itself doesn't fix mana, he does have 4 copies of Primal Druid and a copy of Pilgrim's Eye to give him easier access to those splash colors. Grapple with the Past, also quite capable of fixing mana as well.
Michael takes a glance at his hand there. You may have noticed, it's got a copy of Emrakul in it. It's going to need it. For Brad Carpenter, on 4, he plays Hangerback Walker on 2. Nissa puts a 1/1 counter on all his creatures. And it is a swing of 4. 3 from the Advocate, 1 from the plant. And you know, I do like Brad's deck. This is an evolution, really, of the green-white tokens deck that was just so good last Standard.
Yeah, just added this nice little Thalia's Lancers package, which gives him a little bit more punch as the game goes long, and a lot of the decks in Standard are trying to play for that long game.
Shrine of the Forsaken Gods is the 7th land for Michael Majors, so he has ramped his way up to 7 mana or 8 mana for these Eldrazi spells. He plays it and just passes the turn, though. If we're on an Emrakul count, 1 more Shrine should do it for Michael Majors.
This untapped mana here looks a lot more like an Elder Deep Fiend. I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see one of those ambush Carpenter in combat here.
Right, because you can just hard cast it for 8 and not actually emerge.
Right. That has to be on Carpenter's radar, though.
Well, Carpenter will go to the warpath here. Nissa will put a counter on everyone again. Replacement Nissa will put a 3rd counter on all the creatures. So we have a 5/6 Deep Advocate, a 3/4 Plant, a 5/5 Hangerback Walker. There are 4 untapped permanents, though, for Carpenter, so a pretty juicy Elder Deep Fiend for Majors.
Yeah, that would enable him to eat the Nissa on his following turn if that's the way he wanted it to go. He's on 13, so just letting these creatures attack him, not ideal.
Yeah, decides to not attempt an in-combat ambush. He just taps out Brad's team and Brad's land. And in response, Carpenter will use the last land to make the hanger back a 6/6.
Which makes it slightly larger than the Deep Fiend.
We are back to Michael Majors. Emrakul is in hand. He currently is 1 shrine from casting it.
And only 2 shrines in the deck.
So
Also has 2 copies of Traverse the Ilvenwald, though he's 1 shy on Delirium as well, so he can't tutor for that just yet.
yeah, 3 types. We'll decide what he wants to do with the Deep Fiend. May take care of Nissa. But there's a lot. Those creatures on Carpenter's board, they're just huge now.
Yeah, they're massive.
Yeah, Nissa's down. Deep Fiend takes care of that. Majors will evoke Wretched Griff, sacrificing Deep Fiend. I like this as that puts the 4th card type in the graveyard.
Yeah, now the other cards in his hand, they gain a bit of value. He wants to start traversing, then he can actually find the creature he wants. Could cast an Ishkana, make the 3 spiders on this turn.
Traverse the Ulfenvault. We'll get him the Ishkana Graph Widow. I say if that Wretched Griff had drawn him the other shrine, he could have Emrakul'd off it, which would have been pretty neat.
That would have been quite the hit.
There's the land, there's the spider. Next turn, we will see Emrakul. She'll be castable thanks to those 4 cards in Michael Majors' graveyard. A trio of spiders join Ishkana. Now we go back to Carpenter. He's hit Majors down to 12, but the next 12 points may be tougher. He's facing down an army of spiders.
No shortage of chump blockers here, to be sure.
Yeah, it looks like Carpenter will just have to build up again. He has Nissa Vastwood Seer. We'll grab him land number 5. Both players here, remember, playing for top 8 of the Invitational. This is the last round of 16. The last match they'll play with their standard deck. The attack from Carpenter is with Hangerback Walker.
Hangerback Walker, the only really expendable creature on his side of the table. If this gets eaten in combat, he'll get a bunch of Thopters for his trouble anyway.
Michael Majors just puts a spider in front of it. Yeah, I mean, if he could, Carpenter at this point would want to get rid of the Hangerback Walker.
Right, and his other creatures could be double blocked by the 3/4 and the 3/5, and then they just get consumed in combat for really no gain.
And here she is. It is the promised end of Emrakul. 4 cards in graveyard. Discounts Emrakul to 9. Shrine and 7 other lands will pay for that. And now we go to Brad Carpenter's turn, but it's going to be piloted by Michael Majors.
And casting Tragic Arrogance for your opponent.
Oh no. That's
quite the effect.
2 Tragic Arrogances, a land, and 2 Avacins. Those are the cards in Brad Carpenter's hand. Majors now has to figure out what is the most destructive thing he can do.
And with 4 5-mana spells, he's only going to be able to cast one thing. There's no way he's just casting Avacyn. That's just not the play here. And I like what he's doing here. He's attacking with the Walker so he can eat it in combat, and then at the end of this, just leave Carpenter with a Thopter.
So Hangerback Walker will attack into Emrakul. Emrakul blocks. 6 1/1s in play for Carpenter. And I think Majors may let him keep one of them.
Yes. Presumably exactly 1. Though technically he could leave Thopter into different creature.
Right, so he can choose the Thopter as both creature and artifact if he chooses the same one, and then Carpenter loses everything else.
Exactly. And lets himself keep just Emrakul as his only creature, so the second Tragic Arrogance couldn't cause him to sacrifice that.
Both players with 1 creature. Majors is slightly better here.
It's approximately 13 times better.
Back to Carpenter. Now he gets another turn. This time he gets to play it. Draws Oath of Nissa. He does have 2 Avacins and another Tragic Arrogance. But unless Majors plays another creature, that Arrogance won't do much. So Carpenter will cast Oath of Nissa, finds a Sylvan Advocate, and looks like another Nissa.
Nissa is far too low impact for this board state. What Carpenter is going to try to do is flash in an Avacyn You can use both the Thopter and the Avacyn when Majors attacks to soak up 5 damage from the Emrakul, and then try to find a way to crack back. But even with that first block, the Emrakul would still punch through for 8 and then 13 on the following turn, so Carpenter would have to commit more blockers. Though he's not technically dead just yet.
Emrakul attacks. Avacyn will protect Carpenter's creatures and make a block.
And Majors can't just cast a second creature. He knows about the Tragic Arrogance in Carpenter's hand already, so he's just got to try to ride this Emrakul to victory.
Yeah, plenty of cards in his hand, but you're right, they're not all that castable. Any creature's actively bad for him here.
If he had a second Emrakul or a Traverse to find a second Emrakul, casting that would be pretty good.
I suppose he could. If he has Elder Deep Fiend, he can time that one really well.
Yeah, you can use Elder Deep Fiend to make it so that Carpenter wouldn't be able to cast Tragic Arrogance at all.
Carpenter plays a Gaia Reach Sanitarium. Now continues to develop his board. It's with a copy of Nissa. Show -2 to put counters on both of Carpenter's creatures.
Something that's pretty unfortunate for Carpenter right now. He's 1 mana shy. He's already made his land drop of attacking with Avacyn and Thopter and then being able to cast the other Avacyn on Major's turn.
So Majors will grapple with the past. We see a Kozilek's Return milled into the yard, and he brings Elder Deep Fiend back. Here you go, Deep Fiend in hand, flashes into play. Kozilek's Return blows up everything. Carpenter loses all of his creatures, and he's not even going to let that happen. He knows where it's at. Game 1 over to Michael Majors.
That's good grappling.
All right. So we look at the sideboards here. Brad Carpenter, 3 hours ago, was looking to stroll into the top 8, and now his tournament life is on the line. He needs to win both of these sideboarded games. We're going to take a look at the weapons he has to do it. We have 2 Quarantine Fields, 3 Stasis Snares, 2 Declaration in Stone, 2 Den Protector, and then 1 copy of Evolutionary Leap, Dragonlord Dromoka, Sigarda Heron's Grace, another Nissa Vastwood Seer, a Linvala the Preserver, and a Pulse of Marasa.
Tends to be a grindy matchup, so there's some argument for the Evolutionary Leap, the 2 Den Protectors, the Pulse of Marasa along those lines. The slam dunk hit here actually is Sigarda Heron's Grace.
So that's because of the ability that Carpenter gains hexproof.
Right, you can't take my turn if you can't target me. Also, I can use Sigarda to exile some stuff from your graveyard, so you lose some Delirium action.
Oh, there's that ability too.
Yeah.
That's excellent. All right, looking over at Michael Majors' Teamer Emerge deck. This deck member was the runner-up at the Pro Tour, had 2 copies in the top 8. He's got 3 Noose Constrictor, 2 Evolutionary Leap, 2 Negate, 2 Kiora, Master of the Depths, 2 Tireless Trackers, and then single copies of Ishkana, that's an additional one, an additional Elder Deep Fiend, a Lashweed Lurker, and then a Dragon Master Outcast.
Lashweed Lurker and Elder Deep Fiend are both quite good against Planeswalkers, and that's a big element of Carpenter's plan, so I like those quite a lot here. Ishkana does the same kind of thing. It's good at applying pressure to Planeswalkers, also just good at blocking, buying time to set up the big Emrakuls, so I like those things quite a bit. I kind of like Dragon Master Outcast. The game is generally going to go long. You can make a bunch of 5/5 flyers. It might be the wrong fit for this matchup, though.
Well, there's this part where Carpenter can't really keep lots of removal in against Majors' deck.
Right, so it should survive. The question is whether or not it's enough. Do you want to be making 5/5 dragons when your opponent could potentially be melding Bracella?
So today on the SCG Tour was not only day 2 of our Invitational, but it was the start of Season 3. It's actually the Open in New Jersey, kicks off the weekend with a Modern Open here, but we will be all over the country, and you can find an event near you. So in September, we're going to be on the eastern seaboard. We'll make our way down to Richmond and then into Orlando for a Standard and Modern Open. Next month, we travel through the Great Plains part of the country. We have in early October a Standard Open in Indianapolis. We take a break for our regional championships and then are back in Milwaukee at the Modern Open. That's at the end of October. Then we make our way to the eastern part of the country again as we wrap things up. We have our Legacy Open of Season 3. That's November 5th and 6th in Baltimore before we end the season with a Modern Open in Columbus, followed by a Standard Open in Knoxville. All this, of course, builds to our Season 3 Invitational, which you can qualify via any events coming up or by top-8ing any of these Opens. December 2nd through 4th, it's another Standard Modern split in Atlanta.
Yeah, this weekend we're having our first Open of Season 3. Fresh start at the Season 3 points race. So it'll be exciting to see how this all shapes out. Plenty of Magic to be played yet this year.
Yeah, now, as we did this season, we also have playmats to give away for each of these Opens you attend. And if these are free with any entry into any Open or Classic. So all 3 playmats are available every weekend. Whether you're entering a Standard Open or Classic, the giveaway is going to be the Dark Salvation playmat. This is the card Black XX. You see Liliana here raising the zombies from the dead. For our Modern Open, we have a Modern card that we'll be featuring as well. It's going to be Steel Overseer, the 2-drop here in Affinity. He'll be available, of course, with the Modern Opens and Classics. And if you make it out to Baltimore for the Legacy Open or play any of our Legacy Classics for the season, it's going to be Sensei's Divining Top. This is the art from Eternal Masters, as you see pictured here, given away for our Legacy events. So 3 formats, 3 playmats available every weekend.
Dark Salvation and Steel Overseer have something in common. Do you know what it is?
Eric Hawkins is playing both of them this weekend.
Absolutely.
That took a second. Yeah. Eric Hawkins appears to be in first place, drawing into the top 8. Very possible he will be the number 1 seed of the tournament when tomorrow rolls around.
Really happy for him. Very hardworking player. Glad to see the big payoff here.
Started hit after that round 14 win. Was able to draw the last 2. Carpenter on the play for our second game here. He's on a 6-card hand. As it's Canopy Vista for Carpenter. Majors will start with Vessel of Nascency. Slow start to the game for the both players. You got to think that favors the player with the Haymaker late game.
Especially with nothing on turn 3, Carpenter is looking to be in trouble here. Majors' deck is just looking to buy as much time as possible to start making these giant emerge monsters, and Carpenter is just giving him that time.
Vessel of Nascency shows an Elder Deep Fiend and 3 basic lands. Majors will take an island. So he now has 3 card types in his graveyard. You see him separating those to the top. And now casts Nissa's Pilgrimage. That sorcery should activate Delirium.
Not a spellmaster, but plenty delirious.
You gotta watch out for those delirious spellmasters. Those guys are just out of control.
They could do anything at any time.
Well, we get a play from Brad Carpenter. On turn 4, he plays a copy of Gideon, Ally of Zendikar.
Gideon is very powerful in this matchup and just as a Magic card, so if Carpenter didn't have this, I would be very concerned about the contents of his hand, though this does put pressure on Majors to start doing more than just making land drops.
And I was going to say, how about this? We said how Majors is delirious. Well, he's going to cast Ishkanah Graph Widow, and that Delirium will give him 3 1/2 spiders.
Suddenly, I am less impressed by Gideon's presence on the battlefield.
Yeah, outclassed a bit here. You see another Gideon, a Stasis Snare. These are cards available in Carpenter's hand, but none of them look too good right now.
Gideon, backup Gideon, is really powerful on the back of a curve of Sylvan Advocate into Nissa.
Right, Emblem, or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. Emblem, just have the other Gideon in play, but Carpenter starting on Gideon, he's really got his back against the wall here.
See, he thought about upticking that Gideon. Has Declaration in Stone, and this was a neat choice by Carpenter as whether or not to go for the Ishkanah or for the spiders. Now keep in mind, if you exile 3 spiders off Declaration in Stone, your opponent does not get 3 clues.
Right, they get 0 clues and they lose 3 spiders. Big issue here is the Ishkanah doesn't have much issue attacking into Gideon. So dealing with the big spider itself, that random card at the cost of 2 mana for Majors, likely to matter less than the Gideon on the table.
Declaration of Stone, the only play from Carpenter, and he had no lands for the turn. If we go back to Majors, he will go on another Pilgrimage. Kind of shortcutting here. So he says he's going to get a forest, put a forest into play tapped, then cast Pilgrim's Eye. Pilgrim's Eye will get an island. So there's the Forest Stuff Pilgrimage. That's into his hand. One of them into play. That basic island is in Majors' hand. You see, he's taking the shortcuts. He doesn't want any sort of repeat of last round. He's cutting time wherever he can.
Anytime you're going to be searching your deck multiple times in a turn, sometimes I even see players start to shuffle between the effects. Just tell your opponent your intentions, ask if they have an interaction. Just save as much time as possible. In particular, in a standard format as grindy as this one, you can't waste any time on nonsense like shuffling a deck that already needs to be reshuffled.
5th land drawn from Carpenter. No attack, profitable attacks just yet. He eyes up his pair of 2/2s. And things are getting grim here, right? So if you're looking at Major's board, he's got 4 card types in his graveyard. He's got 7 lands in play. Okay, we're at 11. 1 shrine, 2 turns. Emrakul's on her way.
And there's plenty of stuff he can be doing that's not even quite as big as Emrakul. That's bad news for Carpenter. Elder Deep Fiend has 5 power. That happens to be the loyalty of Gideon right now.
So what do you make of this? Carpenter's play was activate Gideon's swing. Majors didn't even chump block with a spider. He went to 15.
Yeah, he wants to maintain this board position here. Carpenter's creatures have a way of getting larger. You have some life to give when you're still up at 20.
Oh, another Ishkanah from Majors. He's still delirious, so now we're up to 6 spiders. I suppose at this point, he can just start burning Brad Carpenter out. That second ability on Ishkanah looks way more threatening now.
Well, problem with Major's deck, he doesn't have access to black mana to activate the spider.
Okay.
Despite having Pilgrim's Eye and 4 Primal Druid, no basic swamp.
On end step, Carpenter flashes Archangel Avacyn into play, and this could be big. If Carpenter can flip the Avacyn, she does not care much for spiders.
No. Doesn't deal enough damage to kill Ishkanah, but takes everything else.
An emblem for Gideon. Now we see what the plus last turn was about. Carpenter's creatures slightly bigger, and most importantly, Avacyn now big enough to attack through Ishkanah. Well, once the spiders leave, that is.
Yeah, Brad has to find a way to get one of his creatures to die.
And no plays, passes back to Michael Majors. Majors, a big slew of lands in hand. You've seen him play another Shivan Reef. Looks like he's got Grapple with the Past, Primal Druid, and it might be all lands. If that's the case, this is actually an opening for Brad Carpenter.
Yeah, he's been casting a bunch of Nissa's Pilgrimage, so a bunch of forests still hanging out.
So he'll cast the Primal Druid. He's so far ahead on mana, just needs to find a way to close.
No shortage of creatures to sacrifice to emerge, but doesn't look like he has any payoff card.
All right, and it's a pass for Majors. This might be exactly what Carpenter needs. He just draws. No plays on that last turn. Makes another Knight. Remember, these are 3/3s now from the Gideon emblem.
And how badly does Majors wish that he had a swamp right now?
Oh, yeah, he would. Yes.
There's a significant cost to putting in that in your deck. He already wants a bunch of forests for all these pilgrimages and what have you, so it doesn't necessarily fit. You just end up in spots where you kind of wish you had it.
So what happened there? Carpenter swung with his pair of Knights. He was hoping one of them would die to flip the Avacyn, but Michael will not have any of that. He chump blocks one with a spider, puts the Primal Dude in front of another, and goes and gets a basic mountain out of his deck.
Yeah, if anything's dying, Major's intention is for it to be everything at the backside of a Kozilek's return.
10 mana now in play for Michael Majors. And he's drawn something. We'll see just what it is. 11th land into play. He has been ramping every turn of the game. And
looks like something big.
Yeah, here's 8 mana. We might see an Elder Deep Fiend.
Might see an Emrakul.
9 mana. Yeah, there's 4 card types in the yard. And here she is. It's the promised end. The 13/13 Majors was looking for one, and now he has found it. And Stasis Snare from Carpenter. Yes, he's doing this during Majors' end step. This is his last chance to cast it before Majors will cast it for him. And Elder Deep Fiend will emerge out of Emrakul, tapping down Carpenter's creatures. Now Carpenter draws. Unclear where we were in combat, but...
Yeah, there was no attack by a spider to take down Gideon, so presumably that must have been cast in second main for some reason. I don't see a reason why you would want that Gideon to hang around.
So this is Brad Carpenter's turn. We have a Stasis Snare, a Quarantine Field, 2 more Gideons. That's numbers 3 and 4. An Avacyn. Now we'll look, what kind of damage can Michael Majors do? We're looking at Avacyn attacking into some spiders. Assault an ally attacking into a Deep Fiend. Remember, those allies are 3/3s. Not enough mana for Majors to Quarantine Field anything. Okay, look, he can Quarantine Field one thing, but he would be short. He's 1 mana short of doing multiples. So here's a swing, and we're going to see Carpenter's creatures mostly attack away. Once the dust clears, Majors left with 1 ally token, or Carpenter with 1 ally. Majors loses all but 1 spider, but that's about it. We see Quarantine Field targeting Stasis Snare, and this one's big.
Looks like he's casting Quarantine Field with just no mana into
with
the
no
X.
target.
Though
Okay.
Unfortunately, Carpenter doesn't have enough white mana that he could actually catch Stasis Snare on top of that.
All right. Yeah, there's no reason that the Stasis Snare doesn't actually have Emrakul under it anymore. She was emerged.
It's just a blank permanent on the table. Carpenter really, or Majors really wishes that Carpenter had that 4th white source so we could just cast that other Stasis Snare.
So now we're on Carpenter's actual turn. He'll play a Hangerback Walker on 1. And interestingly enough, Majors is not ahead even though he got that Emrakul off. He's even.
Yeah, Carpenter has had the requisite answers to the proactive things that Majors has attempted. He was able to deal with the body on the Emrakul, and given the mana constraints on Carpenter's side, the Emrakul turn was not that bad.
Now, Majors' draw for the turn is a copy of Kozilek's Return. Now, normally that would be excellent on this board, but that Gideon emblem is keeping the allies safe out of reach of the first half of that.
Right, it would kill his own Pilgrim's Eye, his own Spider, and convert Carpenter's Hangerback Walker into a Thopter.
Well, Pilgrim's Eye does a great job here. It finishes off Gideon. Majors passes.
Constructed All-Star Pilgrim's Eye.
I love that card in Q, but didn't ever actually think we'd see it do this much in Standard.
No.
Land for Carpenter, he passes. Majors draws a land of his own.
It actually saw a little bit of play in the old Zendikar Standard as well, in some terribly slow blue-white control decks.
Well, really what, it took a real confluence of keywords here. Both Emerge and Delirium playing so well with the card.
Delirium's the big one, yeah. And amusingly, one thing keeping Pilgrim's Eye down, we might see more of it if it wasn't for Liliana the Last Hope.
Archangel Avacyn again here from Carpenter. He'll pass. Now Majors, it looks like he's had a grapple with the past that he's just holding on to in his hand. But it's been there for a while. Which that might actually just be a Primal Druid. Either way, Carpenter untaps here with Archangel Avacyn. It's a 5/5, so it is big enough to tack through the Ishkana.
Yep, not even the Ishkana plus Spider can do too much about that.
And that's what she'll try to do. Now Majors, chirk up his sleeve. You see that Kozilek's Return he's holding on to. Both spiders block. Ishkana is down. 4 damage currently on Avacyn. Gideon from Carpenter. Makes another ally a pass. And then here's that Kozilek's Return. It will only kill the Spider, the Pilgrim's Eye, and the Avacyn. Remember, there is already 1 Gideon emblem going.
Yep, getting the Avacyn off the table is nice, though. That threatened a lot of potential damage to Majors here, whereas the rest of the stuff is cleaned up relatively nicely by the Kozilek's return. Of course, the Hangerback Walker surviving the first side there is problematic.
Back over to Majors' turn. 3 cards in hand. He's facing down some pretty large creatures on Carpenter's side, but he has added Kozilek's return to his graveyard, so this may all be fine. Looks like he's going to start by going through the Ulfenwald. He'll get any creature. 6 card types now in his graveyard. Artifact, creature, sorcery, instant, land, enchantment. And what will he find? I imagine we're going to find another Emrakul. And there she is.
Quick check through, is this the largest creature in all of Standard? Yes, yes, of course it is. We'll go with Emrakul.
With 6 card types in the graveyard, she only costs 7 mana, and he'll go ahead and do that. And most importantly, he gets to trigger Kozilek's return on this. So still plenty of mana left over. Kozilek's return blows up all of Brad Carpenter's creatures. He does get 2 Thopters for his trouble.
And he gets stuck on 2 Thopters because he still has that Stasis Snare, but he has to cast it now, otherwise Majors would be the one casting it.
Right.
And it shouldn't be difficult for Majors to deal with just 2 Thopters.
Right, that's why he didn't activate in response.
Yep.
So we see Snare takes care of Emrakul, and now Majors will get Brad Carpenter's turn. All right, Oath of Nissa. He'll look at the top 3. I don't think. Let's see, does he have to pick one? It's 2 lands and an angel. Yeah, he'll pick none.
Yeah, it's a card where technically you're just looking at them, so yeah, it is a May, so you don't have to do anything with that.
Carpenter will attack with both his Thopters. Then he'll cast a second Gideon and Legend Rule it away. Then he'll take the newly cast Gideon and make a second emblem.
And additional emblems with no creatures don't do very much.
Did Michael give him 2 emblems?
Yeah, maybe he getting a little overzealous there.
He didn't have to.
No. And if you look at the clock, Majors just had to make a decision quickly.
Yeah.
So that's got to be what that was.
And now he's going to grapple with the past. Vessel of Nascency, Lashweed Lurker, Elder Deep Fiend. They're all great cards, but I think he has a different one in mind. I wonder if you can guess which one it is.
You might be onto something. We saw him look through his entire deck and take a card over any of these. Thinking we might see another Emrakul come in on.
Oh, he's going to get Lashweed Lurker? Sure, put the Advocate on top of the deck.
Yeah, I suppose this way in 2 turns he just has a guaranteed lethal here. He's attacking for
8.
Yeah, then next turn.
And yeah, next turn. And there we go. He puts Carpenter down 9. He has it. And Michael Majors takes the win over Bradley Carpenter. So 12, 3, and 1. He is victorious. And now he gets to wait. Things are looking good for Michael Majors. With this win, he moves up the standings into what is likely going to be 8th place.